Hi, this is Julie Thompson reporting from IAB Innovation Days at Internet Week. I'm here with the top editors of Slate, who just conducted a live version of their hugely popular political Gabfest. We have Emily Bazelon, senior editor, David Plotz, editor, and John Dickerson, chief political correspondent. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you just came live off the stage. What was that like doing the podcast live in front of an advertising audience?
Well, we love doing it live. Obviously, this is a special audience, but they sort of get what we do. They understand the kind of theory behind the podcast, but also the things we were talking about. We were talking about politics, the relationship between what politicians do, how they try to reach voters, what works, what doesn't work in the digital area, and that's what we do every day with our own lives. That's what this audience was doing, so it was a kind of a special experience.
Yeah. From your perspective, how was it?
John, as always, was very eloquent. John's so TV savvy. I like your hand gestures in particular, John. But we usually do this in front of folks who are particular fans of the Gabfest, and it was really interesting to do it in front of an audience that was oriented around technology, about how people are using it, and we thought hard about, as we planned the show, how can we talk to them about things that are going on in politics that will relate to some of the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And Emily, you said you're a big fan of the internet because it's so interactive. You get so much immediate feedback. It's so different from writing for print. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it is the immediacy, the sense that you're part of a conversation, that you hear back right away from people who have strong opinions about what you've said, and that kind of feedback is really exciting.
Yeah. And how do you, the theme of this conference is about screens to the nth power and how we're living in this multi-device, multi-screen universe. And it's not just about, one screen. How do you tailor your content, or do you, for different devices, like tablet versus PC?
Well, I think it's very important for Slate to reach our readers and our listeners in all the different ways that they interact with digital media. So we began as a website, but we have, of course, a mobile site. We have a tablet site, an iPad optimized site, and we reach people with video and in particular with podcasting. And each of those demands something different. And in tablet, the way our tablet site looks is not the way our main website looks. The way our mobile site looks is very stripped down. The ad positions, as it relates to some of the work that folks at IAB are involved in, the ad positions are different. The way advertising works, on our podcast, we have advertising that's really directly integrated into the podcast, where we are reading the ads. And so we are very conscious that the different media of the web and of the different digital media require different approaches to how you deal with content.
And that's one of the things we discovered in the podcast, which is that here's this thing it's not radio, it's something different, but it creates a connection with our listeners that's different than the kind of connection you make with a print piece or a piece that they're reading just on a tiny mobile device. Yet on the other hand, a lot of times they're taking their tiny little mobile device, listening to us while they're working out or running. But it's created this new kind of experience that is just completely created by the access to the technology.
Great. And do you find your audience responds more or less on different devices? Do you find like the smartphone user is more actively responding to your stories?
I think that their comments come in all the different devices, but you do find that people are reading things on their phones sort of even more quickly. They don't have to be at their computers. They can be in the grocery line. They can be anywhere and reading us.
Yeah, and we found it fascinating, all of your collective takes on social media in general, how it's affecting the elections, how it affects policy. I thought it was fascinating what you were saying, David, about how there's no private space anymore, politics, there's no back rooms anymore, there's no time to test ideas, and how everything's performative, everything's examined, dissected, and spread immediately. Like that was really interesting. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I think you've just said perhaps the most interesting things that we said, but
I took your best sound.
You took my best. You said it better than I did. I do think that the one effect in particular of Twitter, but of all social media, and of the universality of there are cameras everywhere, there are microphones everywhere, and the ability of of journalists and even non-journalists, I mean, perhaps it's the rise of non-journalists even more important, to spread things instantly, has made it very hard for any part of politics to remain cordoned off from the press anymore. I mean, there are things that happen privately, that they happen privately, but things spread so quickly, news spreads so quickly.
Once something's public, right? Once something is public, it's very public.
It's very, yeah, and right.
Yeah, and the speed of the news cycle, you touched on that.
Right. I mean, it feels to us like it's immediate, that there's this sense in which people have to respond to news right away. They can't afford to let it sit around for days or even hours to see what's going to come of it, because if you make a mistake, it's amplified.
Although I would like to say one thing, which is that, so we work for magazine Slate, and Slate is not primarily a news magazine. We're a magazine of analysis and opinion and reporting, and one of the great values, I think, of journalism in this age is that, and one reason why people come to Slate in such great numbers, is that if you do take a little bit of time to think about these things, if you don't sort of say everything is going to be responded to instantly, but if you take a little bit of time, you can be much deeper with the subject, much richer with it, and give your readers and listeners an experience that's much more valuable to them ultimately than just the instant momentary response. And that's one thing that Slate aspires to, and that John and Emily in particular do brilliantly.
That actually sounds like a great piece of advice almost for marketers. In there, everyone feels like, there's this almost obligatory feeling to jump on the social media train and protecting your brand in that environment. But maybe that's a great piece of advice for them as well.
I think I'm sorry, John, you would say something on it, but I think it's don't be frantic. I think there's a way in which everyone gets frantic, and social media makes people frantic, and you shouldn't be frantic. You should think, what do we do really well? What is it that we do well, and what do we know about our story, or in our case, our reporting, that can wait a minute, it can wait an hour, it can wait a day,
and it will still be
worth hearing, and people will learn a lot more from it.
Also, in the frantic chase, people want a vacation from the freneticism, and so they want something that feels like it's a considered piece, and it's not just one more little thing binging and bonging, and so that not only is it a piece of quality work that you can be proud of, but it's a thing that offers a respite for readers to kind of get away from everybody else's frantic effort to grab a piece of their attention.
Yeah, that's great advice. It was actually what you were saying too about how people politicians especially, they have to worry about what's going on all the social channels, much like they used to worry about cable news all day and what was going on there. Now it's this rush, and so your advice would be take a more considered approach.
Well, politicians have, in a sense, the same challenge we have, which is you can't ignore the chatter and the frantic back and forth, because it's where a lot of people are first intersecting with you or getting strong opinions about you. Mm-hmm. But if that rules you, if that's all you do, then you're only giving people kind of this thin crust at the top. That the connections that will make people vote for you, or that make people have long-term relationships with you that they'll keep coming back for, or that cause them to actually change their mind about things, those are the things that require richer engagement than just the kind of daily pinging of them.
Great. Well, congratulations on today and on the growth of Slate. It's been so exciting, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.